Okay, so good morning. We're back again with another interview with new artists, old artists, middle-aged artists. I'm older than any of them. At the Arts Council for Wyoming County in Perry, and we're talking with Ed Hallborg and Pfeiffer, who the show opened last night. And the title of the show, Jackie, what's the title of the show? I forgot.
Cast?
Yeah, Cast in Place. Yeah.
Thank you.
Works of the Bennington Concrete Collective.
The Bennington Concrete Collective. We love this name. It gives more of a foundational feel than
Foundation.
Concrete.
The puns are going
Nicely
here.
played.
We're in already, so you know it's early in the morning. We have fun. So you opened last night. What did you think of the experience of opening?
Great turnout.
Yeah, it was great. The whole experience is wonderful. And the setup here, the gallery is beautiful.
What Jackie does is amazing.
Yeah,
she work, really.
She's very attentive to detail, and our teacher herself, and so and an artist herself.
I mean, I knew about the artists. I didn't know about the art teacher.
Yeah. So it's we all of us mushes together.
Yeah.
You said that you met each other here
Yeah.
at a local color show a few years ago.
Yeah.
Just by chance. I mean, we were here at the same time type of thing.
Were you looking at the same piece and commenting to each other about it?
I think I was probably bashing some of his pieces. And my wife said, don't, because that's the artist. And we started talking. I felt embarrassed. So we became friends from that point forward.
You were indebted to having me.
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I happened to overhear all the things he was saying about the piece, and then we took it from there.
Yeah, it was actually one of the pieces on the wall with the trees. And it just totally stopped me in my tracks. And a lot of people don't work in concrete and cement and stuff like that. So it just so happened he was here. We got to talking. He saw my stuff. And I think it was actually stone at the time.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And we got to talking about the cement and concrete. And then that was soon after he said, Brian, you got to get back into it. Because I kind of stopped doing that.
Yeah,
with
you
stone.
mentioned that last night.
Yeah, because 100-pound pieces gets kind of tough. And he's inspired me. I went back, I got the sketchbook out and pulled it apart.
So do you work, I think I've known that a long time, but I didn't know about the concrete work, so this was new to me too. But photography and woodwork and making frames and all kinds of furniture. But Ed described this process last night as with photographs as models sometimes?
Yeah, I'll take my own photographs, and then I do find images. I don't work from, I'm not doing it, what do they call it, in plein air?
Yes, on plein air.
On plein air, I don't do any of that, but it is basically from photographs. But it'll be, I'll modify it. I like the photographs for the composition, and then sort of take it from there and wherever it needs to go.
And you work from drawings.
We got sketches, it's in my head.
So do you do lots of sketching that doesn't come out into other kinds of pieces, but sketches for their own sake?
No, not at all. It's just, and sketches probably being very nice. Like when my conceptual drawings are just scribbles. It's all up here, but I have to put it down because with the concrete, you have to have a skeleton, armature. So you have a rebar, and you have to kind of know where it's got to go for structural purposes and welding and stuff like that. But they're just scribbles, truly scribbles that are, here it's clear, but so I've never been a good drawer. That's why when I see people that draw and paint, I'm just blown away. I don't do that. It's not my process, but.
Can I just say, I've seen some of his sketches, they're not as rough as he
I'm going to guess, because I'm a sketch artist as well, and I sometimes I use the sketches, I take the sketches for photographs that I take, sometimes I'm blending them and those kind of things, but I suspect, for your own standards, maybe it's not what you would call.
Okay, all right, it doesn't count. I'm going to take it.
You should take it.
I'm taking it.
But for you both working in concrete, so I was wondering last night, you're using found pieces of plywood, basically.
Yeah, just for my base.
For your base?
Yes.
Same thing for you?
In regards to
When you are putting a concrete piece together, like building the box for Pandora, or
but
you're mostly doing rebar, or you're using plywood too?
no, I'll use plywood at the base, the form of the base. But no, it's rebar. Rebar's a big thing.
Can it just maybe this a little bit. Are you pouring? Are you pouring?
No, it's called build-up stone.
It's all.
You know, where like a stone, it's takeaway, you create a takeaway, where
Okay.
what I do is build up. It's layer, layer.
Okay, I got you. Okay. Yeah, so
And you're taking away.
I think actually it's more so, I just realized our process is more similar than I thought it was. Because I really thought you were you pour the base though,
The,
right?
yeah, you pour the base, you do
Yeah.
a form for that, and then you just plant the rebar and just keep building up.
Yeah.
But yours, if that's what I wanted to clarify,
Right.
because for you, that's that's a lot of time. It dries, you feel more trying to.
Time to keep it wet. That kind of stuff.
You talked last night about doing the first pour, then as it dries, doing the shaping. So
Yeah.
while I thought these pieces would be taking days and days, I'm under the impression that they're very intense hours. And then if you do a second pour, you're not necessarily always happy with it.
Well, you're right in the ballpark there. I think all the prep work before the pour is what can take me weeks. Because the drawing and the mosaics, as I was referring to, that takes a lot of time. But then the pour itself is sort of frantic because it starts to set up. So I have to move very quickly with that. Now I have to prep how much of this stuff am I going to make before it starts to set up. Yeah, that's usually, I think the most it's ever taken me to do one of these. It's the pour, the application is 2 hours.
And then the fine tuning, right? I mean,
The fine tuning, sure, but I mean, yeah, the main piece would be brushed, and then afterwards I might go in for like you said, a second application.
But it's funny you say about the frantic.
Yeah, it's
Because once you get to that point, like the rebar skeleton's made, the wood's down on the fan. But when you get to that point of starting to mix, the clock starts.
yeah.
And even though it's in layers, then the hours, the day starts. I've got 2 days to start. So I have to if I can go longer, keep it wet, keep it covered, but the longer I go, the more technically challenging it gets, because then I have to make sure I prep that site. I can't put new concrete on old concrete and expect it to mesh together.
Right.
And how much of that freneticism, controlled artistic freneticism, is modified or affected by weather conditions? Are your studios pristine enough so that you got the heat or the cool whenever you needed it, so you're not?
Humidity affects it.
Yeah.
If you're in sunlight, I got to keep that in mind, so I got to keep it wetter. It's been a 3-year trial and error. I'm still learning.
Well, one does, right? I mean,
Exactly.
that's what makes you an
100%.
artist, is that you don't just settle in and say, oh, well, I've got this.
Right, exactly.
I think you were saying this morning that you were hitting a point that in the winter here you weren't going to be able to pour for a bit. Is that correct?
Right, well, and it kind of depends. Like last year, the one piece I did, I started in fall and it got really cold. So I couldn't risk doing pours in really cold, because it isn't climate controlled, my studio. Right? And I waited till the spring. It turned out great, but it was more logistics. I had to put some studs in there and I'd like to do it all at once.
That's complicated.
It is. Now, I on the other hand, because the amount of cement that I'm using is so fine, I mean, it's sometimes 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch sometimes. I can do this inside. So I could do all my work in the studio, prep work, and then bring it into the basement, and my wife will let me keep it in there for a few days. So she's great about it, but and I'll do the pour, and then it can set up in there, so.
I've noticed on some of your pieces, especially one, I'm trying to remember which one last was, it might be the trees.
Okay.
You were using very light brush strokes.
Yeah.
Almost like, it looked to me like the closest painting
Yeah.
that I've seen in any of your work. So are you experimenting more with that, or was that just a momentary?
No, I think I do. I don't know if I really push that here, but I do refer to it as cement. So I think that is, as you said, sometimes it's more apparent.
Yeah.
Here you got some of the brush strokes, but certainly some of the other ones, it doesn't come off quite as much. But yeah, it is a painting
I like
process.
that. That was one of the things I liked about
Yeah.
your stuff versus the tree thing.
Yeah, right. It's very different. Yeah.
Those brush strokes, those little tiny variations, man, like it's just to stand there and shift.
Yeah, and it moves.
It
Yeah,
moves.
yeah.
I said that last night, and I don't want people looking at me like, that's crazy. But it does. I will stare at one of your paintings and your pieces, and things will come out.
Right.
Maybe it's just me, but things will. You did a cottage piece. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you were crazy about it. And I stood there and I
Oh,
said,
yeah, that's
Ed, I see trees forming on the side. And
Yeah.
then they're not moving. I don't want to make a picture like a psychedelic trip or something. But I see things start to form. And that's what I really like. I think it's the strokes. I think it's tiny little things like that.
Yeah. Would you? I want you to press that button, Jackie. Okay, so I've asked Ed to talk about the piece that for today he finds his most, for him, moving piece and what works for him with it.
So I guess if I'm going to talk about what works in this, it is the most recent. So it's going to be your new favorite.
Yes.
There's a lot of things in this one that I did that are a little bit different. So as you were saying, Norm, each one is we're always experimenting.
Right.
We're always trying to push it a little bit. So this one I think has more of the paint brush work.
I thought,
a little bit more apparent than some of the other ones. And all the, I haven't mentioned this before, but all the lightness is actually very controlled. I do that with water spritzing.
Oh.
So this is all very intentional. And then this is crazy because this object right here is based off of an image I found using the brand new AI program that is out there creating art.
Oh,
So
yes,
the
yes.
DALL-E 2.
DALL-E 2, yeah.
And so I typed in something like desolate urban tower or something like that. And this is more or less one of the, it's a minor version of it. But it came back with one of these crazy images, computer generated images, and I used that as a sort of a focal point.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I will say what's interesting about this too, and this is where my wife, God bless her, came into play, because I was sort of going for this pyramid here, and originally instead of the tower, I actually had a giant statue, a silhouette statue of
Tesla?
no, it was like Chairman Mao.
Oh, okay.
And I had that up there. It was this giant statue, and it looked. The idea was great.
Yeah.
The execution was not.
Okay.
So luckily, she put a stop to that, and we removed that, and I put that piece in place there.
This seems to me, this evokes for me, I think we call it the new idol.
Yeah.
All I could think of was the Niagara power plant.
Sure.
And the KV wires and everything,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the water rushing out of it. But that was for me.
Well, yeah, right. Well, I think what's kind of interesting that I'm finding here, and it's funny, it makes perfect sense, is, we live in this area that we see this sort of stuff. There's one down there that has sort of the Buffalo Harbor lighthouse, and that is a model, and I had several people recognize that stuff. You can't help but take, what's in your environment and sort of, implement it.
I do.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
So we're outside the Arts Council for when you come in, and I asked Ed and I asked Brian which piece today was speaking to them most, and Brian said to talk about this piece has been really drawing a lot of attention around Perry for a while. So what tell us?
Well, the title of this piece is Thinking Out of the Box. Out of box thinking. Inside here, there's a box. A concrete box. And in the back there's the guy's hands are put together, so he's thinking. It's out of box thinking. You can put anything in the box. I've done a show, we've had one single flower coming out of the box. ACWC does a great job of changing this theme-wise for the holiday, which is fantastic. But the actual title is Out of Box Thinking. And it's simple, it's plain. He's thinking, there's a box, it's open, and he's outside the box. So it was pretty straightforward to name it, Out of Box Thinking.
It's really interesting because in this, you have this piece here, you have the Pandora piece inside, so you've got a box thing going on.
Until you just said that, I didn't think about it, but you're right. You're right.
And the shadows, the placement of this, Jackie. I've seen this at all different hours of the day, being here so much for Shake on the Lake and so on. It's alive because the shadows are moving all the way through the day.
Which is nice about the stuff I do because it's simple. It's a simple color, it's a simple formation, but the light also, like Ved's pieces, the light will hit it a certain way and it'll speak to you. The light will hit this, it has a shadow a certain way, it changes it sometimes. But
What's problematic about doing a figure the way you do art?
capturing the theme or emotion that I want. I work with a solid object, so there's no facial expressions on here to somebody look at it and go, oh look, yeah, I can see he's thinking. His head's crouched down. He's got, the brows are furrowed. There's nothing like that at all. It's a solid face. So I have to really think about how do I angle the head just a little bit. What angle should I have the arm at? So somebody can look at it and go, oh, I can see he's thinking out of the box. Or other pieces I've done. That's the challenge. It's a solid piece. I don't work in a lot of detail. I have to capture what I want to capture in a solid piece.
Okay. Well, thank you for talking about